Yuri Humber, founder and president of Japan NRG platform at the Yuri Group. Yuri, the Japan is sort of being held up as the test case of the big tariff face-off with the world, the US and the world. We're 1 month into this 90-day pause. Japan were kind of held up as Exhibit A, quick deal. They're big close buddies with the US. The US is their bodyguard. Ultimately, it even looks like the Japan negotiations for a tariff deal are, as it says in the Japan Times today, torturous was the headline in the Japan Times about the talks between Japan and the US. How significant do you think this negotiation is with Japan and the US? How difficult will it be? Is it an easy one? Will it get done? Your thoughts?
Thanks very much, Sean. Yes, not exactly an easy question. I think first of all, we just
Not an
need
easy
to.
question about a not an easy tariff talks, about a not an
No,
easy relationship in which the bodyguard wants to kick you in the shins.
well, right. I mean, I'm not sure if the bodyguard usually uses such language towards its presumably customer partner.
You haven't heard Trump
I think
speak
there's been a
lately? I
massive
mean,
amount of surprise about not so much maybe some of the demands, but some of the language. That has, of course, the government and the Prime Minister Ishiba's administration isn't going to react to it beyond sort of what has become a customary government response of things like, this is regrettable, which most people sort of dismiss as being a little bit lukewarm, but in Japan has a more stronger flavor to it. But it has actually empowered some of the politicians that are a little bit less in the spotlight. Certainly, not only the opposition politicians, but those maybe, if you like, the backbenchers, to come forward and say, "Wait, this isn't really a negotiation, is it?" I think that, but let's restate the parameters of the assumptions that Japan does need to make some kind of deal with President Trump, and it believes, just as in the previous Trump administration, that a deal could be put forth. I think the complications this time around is that, one, there are a lot of different signals, not just from President Trump himself, but from the team around him. Just a case in point, is the yen part of the negotiations or not? We hear at the beginning some of the economic team behind President Trump saying that the yen absolutely has to strengthen, that the dollar has to weaken, and so forth. And then we have, Mr. Besson say that actually the yen isn't part of the negotiations. There's obviously the negotiations, and then there's the conversation in the media. I understand that, but I think that there is a little bit of a confusion on the Japanese side because, for example, if you want to boil down sort of what has happened so far, you've had the White House say we need a deal and we need a win, and Japan has sort of said, sure, and we absolutely would like to move forward with a win. Why? Because Prime Minister Ishiba's ratings are quite low. They're in the low 30s and continue to be in the low 30s, not just because of the international factors, so quite a lot of domestic factors. He's currently running a minority government. There's a lot of things that are kind of shaky in his position, and he has the upper house elections coming up in July. So he really needs a win too. Ironically, if the Trump administration pushes too hard and he looks like he has egg on his face, then he's going to do incredibly badly in those upper house elections and will likely then have to fall on his sword. So the opposite could also be true, that he gets a good deal out of this, somehow manages to score a win that he can sell to the public, therefore restoring somewhat his position and therefore giving the ruling
but can
party
this
a
be
little bit of
done
vote.
within this 90-day window? Typically, Japan moves a lot slower on these sorts of things.
Well, I think the problem is the Japan side has gone to Washington and said, "Okay, what would you like in this deal?" And there isn't a clear answer.
Yeah.
So it's very
Yeah.
difficult to put together a package if you don't really know what the other side wants
What the
beyond
target
very,
is. Yeah.
very large things.
Where do you throw the dart if you don't know where the dartboard is? Just pick up, Yuri, on the previous points you made and mentioned earlier as well. The survey questions up there. Trump's China tariffs to unleash supply shock on U.S. economy, because the 140% tariff, the impact of that is now trickling through to actually container boxes on ships going from China to Los Angeles are down 30 to 40% in the first month. So the sort of follow through of that over many months is not insignificant. Is that bullish or bearish for oil prices, though? That is the question. Yuri, looking at the wider issue of the tariffs, the global tariffs, but particularly on Asia, Japan seems to be resisting Trump's efforts to form a trade bloc against China. China has gone out to the Asian region on a tour, has indicated, let's stick together, let's continue to trade, let's not join with this idea of a Trump effort to isolate China. Your thoughts on that and Japan's position on that?
Um, well, first of all, I think this is probably the world's most expensive lesson in economics that we've ever seen. You know, Perhaps I'm missing some of the genius behind it, but there seems to be a lot of reactive changes in the US administration when they sort of realize that some of the impacts that their rules or new order has had, that these impacts are not actually sustainable for the domestic audience. So I think similarly, there are red lines, absolute red lines that countries cannot go over. In Japan's case, the idea that you would stop trading with China, which is right on your border, which is the other major economy in the region, that is basically the number one trade partner for Japan in the Asia Pacific region. I mean, it's a nonsense. Yes, you could sort of try and, as the Biden administration tried to do, say, well, can we minimize trade in certain very high spec things like semiconductors to try and maybe slow down the development of certain high tech on the on the Chinese side. Japan wasn't a huge fan of it, but was able to at least go along and do its best and ask the certain companies to restrain their sales, which is at the end of the day, that's what they have to do. They have to sell less, earn less money. In this case, it seems to be this even greater demand, and yet there is nothing on offer on the other. There is no flip side. I should say, sorry, there is no compensation. So you're just sort of saying, please curtail a massive amount of sales without offering a whole new market elsewhere, which is exactly the position a lot of Southeast Asian countries have found themselves in over the years, where they've been sort of put between, let's say, China and the US and said, well, we can't really pick either because both are extremely important for our economy. So I don't think you can go towards this very black and white scenario in terms of trade blocs and alliances. I don't think it will happen on the
What
China side.
about, I mean, what we've seen in Europe, where the Europeans have had to really rethink their post Second World War relationship with the US and are aggressively moving into, the new Chancellor of Germany takes office in a few days with $1 trillion budget to seriously ramp up its military capabilities, etc. Where does Japan, is there a new moment? Is it a we have to rethink think moment, or they're not taking that sort of European view?
Japan has been on a trajectory where it has to increase its military spending for a while. It has been, in fact, ironically, the Prime Minister Abe was the one that tried to push it most strongly and found it very difficult because of that sort of post-war, we shouldn't get involved, we shouldn't be focused on the military so much attitude. And then later on, it has. So now Japan has a much stronger, more aggressive target to increase its military spending, which is still, of course, incredibly low compared to the Chinese military military spending growth. But there, even that isn't enough for the US administration. From their point of view, it has to go even higher. And I think there's just a point at which, again, the economy cannot physically move that fast and cannot the spending can't be allocated that quickly, because as for example we're talking about the trade negotiations right now, but you had the US side saying, well, how about you buy more LNG? Where are we going to use this LNG? Japan's LNG outlook is not entirely bearish, but certainly not entirely bullish. How about you buy more arms from the US? And I think the comment from the Japanese side was, well, we have ordered quite a few things and they haven't yet arrived. So there is only so much you can do from the trade side. Sure, there's a lot of creative not accounting, but lots of creative thinking going on right now. Could we buy more soybeans? Could we buy more XYZ? But there is a limit to how much any country can sort of commit itself on the economic front to imports from the US. And certainly, even going back to LNG, is it possible that, Japan is one of the core anchors investors in the Alaska LNG project, this giant project that the Trump administration would like to do? I suppose you could see it in some ways, but then it would have to basically not renew the contracts, most of the other contracts that it has with, Australia, Middle East, and so many other suppliers.